Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge here with another week of Cardfight Vanguard news. So this week we predominantly have all the stuff from the product stream, which is very exciting. I really want to talk about that stuff, as well as the new cards for Faceruger and the Zerith deck. And we also have some English side tournament news, which I'm pretty excited about. So let's get into everything. So starting off with the Tuesday stream, the only we're not going to talk about the Bangram stuff. So we got some promos for the Glimmer decks. So the glitter, sorry. So the Craycross Epic um physical book releases are happening, and those books are going to come with two promos. They're basically the same. Um, they're effectively the same promo, just split across the six different glitter decks. So this first one that comes with the first book, you can only have one in your deck. It cannot be played, and if you have a Vanguard with glitter and you have a Tamiyura, Rora, or Michu Vanguard, it gets all the following. When you this card from hand, you look top 7, add a glitter or non-regalis piece order to your hand. And from hand or drop, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can remove it to add a glitter or non-regalis piece order from drop to hand. Yeah, I believe that is like a yeah. There aren't glitter orders. It's the looking at the Japanese formatting. I'm pretty sure that's glitter card or not order card that isn't a regalis. So yeah, you do get to add glitter units with that, and the formatting looks the same on the first bit too. Um, Quite good. Very easy for this to become a just dig for two things. Get two pieces that you need. Very nice. Think this is quite good. And then the other one for the second book is effectively the same thing, except it's for Chaos, Ava, and Thagria. And let me just quickly glance over this. Yeah, there's nothing different here. It's the same card. So these are two instances of the same card. They're just split across two different decks, which will take a bit of price pressure off of each of them, which is nice. So yeah. And the promo you get for buying both books as a bundle is just an Altart Fire Regalis. And then we have Vase Rearers. So we just got this big honking grade 3 Mythish. There's no other support card to go with it. It's just this guy. Mythish Machine Deity, Monstern, Angerbold. It is 28k base power, 1 critical. You cannot ride it or call it to a rearguard circle. When it's in your hand and you have a Moon Gate, you can Soul Blast 1 and reveal it. And you add a Mythish with a different name from this, from your order zone to hand, and in exchange you put it into your order zone. Which can help with your main phase board building, which is nice. Then in the order zone, when your Vanguard with Faceruger and its name attacks, if you have not returned a unit with Mythish and its name back to your deck during this battle, you get to return one or more from rare and up to 2 from drop for a total of 3 cards. Basically, you need to return the 3 different named Mythish cards that Faceruger has access to. 1 coming from your rearguard circles, 2 coming from your drop. Return them all to your deck, and that will cause this card to lose its continuous ability for the rest of the turn, which will thus allow it to be called onto rear by Faceruger's ability. At the end of each turn, retire this unit. So it doesn't do anything else. It's just a big bungus. A 28k big bungus is pretty nice, especially with like the power gain that Faceruger already represents. It's like almost guaranteed if you have this as part of your board. This is going to be the biggest unit on that board. It is going to be a significant power upgrade from what that swing would have been with the deck as it currently is. It is still like a bit lame as a card. It's just not very exciting. And it adds a new soul cost to the deck. which is also not fantastic. I don't know. The soul cost probably isn't that big of a deal because of whatever the hell the grade one is called. But all the same, it's not very interesting. I think it's good. I think it's definitely like a market buff to the deck because it increases your power output. But it's not interesting or exciting. Moving on from there, what were we talking about next? Oh, that's the same thing. All right, is it? Do I have these up in the right order? Give me a sec. Okay, I didn't have the thing up. So next we have the quarterly product stream. So first up, Dear Days News, Festival Booster 2025 DLC. Don't really care about that. Then we have the Banlist update. This is a pretty big one. So almost every notable deck got hit in some regard. So Vergilla got 2 major hits. Alpha Knights got restricted to 2 copies, and there's also a choice restriction with the base Vergilla and Nerman. This makes the deck effectively unplayable right now, because like without Alpha Knights, the deck isn't really doing enough, and you don't have the reliable enough access to your Alpha Knights. Like I just can't really see the deck being super playable with these restrictions. Like I'm not even sure the Norman restriction was even necessary because only being able to access max 2 Alpha Knights over the course of the game would often not be enough. So yeah, this is pretty much a death sentence for the deck. Heartluru got off pretty lightly, but Heartluru has been falling off quite significantly in recent tournaments. Heartluru just has a choice restriction with the red OT, so he can't do the red OT nonsense anymore, which is like appreciated. But like the deck's core is still quite strong, so the deck's still super playable. It doesn't have its scammiest line available to it anymore. The Dark States restricted 2, that's a rewinder hit. A fairly minor rewinder hit to my understanding. Like it my understanding is like it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. So when we almost certainly get when we get the new rewinder grade 3 in Festival, which is one of the things that they that we found out on the Thursday stream, the deck will almost certainly be super playable in English, assuming we get this Banlist exactly as it is, which has been the case for a long time, so I doubt we'll get anything different. Genesis got a pretty major hit in Realm going to 1, but like the deck's core ceiling hasn't really changed, so it'll probably still be strong. And Deeplands has a similar kind of hit where like it got a hit to its card advantage engine, its longevity in a choice restriction between Rotting Usurp and Harvest Elf, but you can still play Rotting Usurp, you just have to give up Harvest Elf. There are other ways of getting solid enough longevity in the deck. So again, this probably does not hurt the deck's viability all that much. It just takes away some of its longevity, knocks it down a peg, but its ceiling is still very much there and very much strong. So I doubt it. This isn't going to make the deck unplayable or anything. It's still going to be very strong. And then this is the really exciting part, bans. So I have been playing this game since its debut year. I started playing back before the English release, in between the Japanese releases of BTO2 and BTO3. Yeah, because BTO3 was being spoiled when I started playing. So I've been playing since like the very first restrictions, like before the very first restrictions were ever implemented. And something I've noticed, and something you will see if you go back and look at past ban lists, something that is very difficult to do because we don't have any good resources documenting that. But something you will notice if you go back through ban lists is that Bushiroad using hard bans in the primary format, it's different in premium as like a secondary format that isn't like the focal point of the game. But in Vanguard's primary format, hard bans is something they very, very, very rarely do. Until V, they had literally never done one. It was all choice restricts or hit to ones or starters being unallowed. But hard bans outside of like a card like Sylvest that had like a, a date it would become illegal on printed on the card. Hard bans is just not something that Bushiroad tends to do with Vanguard. Vanguard specifically doesn't tend to do. And in V, there were a few cards that ended up getting banned. Them being some really egregious guard restricts. But because of V being so generically designed and those guard restricts being so egregious, they were cases that basically forced Bushiroad's hand. Like, it would have been hard to deal with those problems with choice restricts, right? Or hits to ones or whatever. Like, all the other mechanisms that Bushiroad employs to avoid doing hard bans. And then, since then, D had not had any bans until what, last fall, when they banned Bell. And Bell was a ban for design space reasons. So Bushiroad is not a company within Vanguard. I need to specify that because, like, as a Buddy Fight player, I know very well that when Buddy Fight first implemented a restriction list, like 4 years into its life, there were a bunch of bans on that very first list. But bans are not something that Bushiroad typically employs. And here we have 8 bans. And what's really interesting is you can see a very clear through line between these bans, right? All 3 of the hostage orders are on here. Those are all cards that enable you, if your deck has revival capacity, to use your perfect cards additional times. The prison card on here, I forget her name, is a card that into specific matchups is just extra PGs. Defending Roar is a card that when combined with the Overtrigger gives you additional effective PGs. The Keter Grade 1 is a card that into non-retire matchups gives you additional PGs. The Genesis support card, Grade 2, retrieves encounter cards, any encounter card, no non-sentinel restriction, so it was primarily used to get more PGs. And the Storage card, if I recall correctly, this retrieves a Blitz order from your drop. So it was being used. You could use it in revival Storage decks to like loop Ghost Chase back to your hand, which would allow you to bounce perfect cards on your board that you revived back to your hand, right? So these cards all fall into the same category. They are all cards that allow easy use of easy additional uses of perfect cards, or have a defensive effect so powerful that they are effectively the same thing as a perfect card, right? And the PDF was very interesting the explanation PDF was very interesting to read this time around. Because like a lot of these are design space things, right? They're like, okay, one, these sorts of cards create issues with the timer. I would just say, Bushiroad, if you want to deal with things that are problems for the timer, maybe change how the overtrigger works, because defensive OTs are one of the most common causes in my experience of games going to timeout. But timer concerns, and also, hey, when we already have a bunch of ways that allow you to get additional PGs, it's kind of hard to make like meaningful defensive effects because this is already the ceiling, and that ceiling is pretty easy for a lot of decks to accomplish, right? So that's interesting. However, one of these is actually not. So in the explanation PDF, they talk about how while the current format is pretty stagnant and they want to change something about it, it was also a very diverse format. So they were running into an issue where, well, we can't just hit 1 or 2 of these decks, because if we do that, that's probably going to result in a worse format overall, where the decks that we don't hit end up just completely dominant, right? So they're like, okay, we need to do like sweeping hits to like the entire format. If we're going to do a hit, and that's very clearly what they did. They know like a bunch of decks that had either high usage rates or high win rates. Um, the one deck on that list that 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 was not on the previous restrictions, the non-ban restrictions, was actually Prison, and they specifically noted that Prison is not a deck that's seeing a ton of success. However, they noticed in their data that that it had extremely high win rates into some specific decks that inflates its overall win rate in their data. And that is like decks that can't empty out the prison um, to turn off this additional PG, and thus that makes it so that the line that those decks have to take to beat prison, which is rush them down hard and fast, is much harder to win with because they're going to have these extra PGs because you're not going to be able to empty out the prison to turn it off. So you're like, okay, we don't like that being the case, so we are going to address this by banning this card, which is very interesting. The choice to hard ban it is also interesting because, like, theoretically, you could just choice restrict this, right? And I find it very interesting that they went for a hard ban instead of a choice restrict because the nature of that card needing the prison means, like, if you just choice restrict it with um, the grade 4 prison boss, then it's not really an issue, right? It solves it that way, and that's the way Butcher tends to prefer to solve issues in the format. Things that aren't hard banned, so that they can say that there's nothing that's truly banned, even if they choice restrict something that is unusable if that doesn't do anything if it's not able to be used with the cards being choice restricted with. Um, so that's interesting. I find that very interesting. But it also indicates that they are willing to use hard bans for balanced reasons, but also the rest of these bans, the philosophy between all of these bans, like, there's a very clear design philosophy of, like, what sort of things we want to have in the game, what sort of things we, like, find to be an issue from a design front, right? And not just, like, pure what's winning. This has been a frustration I've had with Bridgewood Vanguard ban this for a very, very long time, is that even no matter how toxic of a play pattern something is a deck might be creating, if it's not one of the top strategies, it's never going to get looked at. And this is a shift away from that sort of purely data driven ban this philosophy, and it excites me a lot. I am much more excited for future ban lists, because it's a lot less predictable now. A lot more is possible to be done with these ban lists now that it is very clear that Bushroad is willing to, one, use hard bans, two, restrict things not necessarily for power level reasons, but for design space reasons. Um, so yeah. Um, Moving on from that, we got more news about the May set, the Legendary Vanguard set. This is the festival booster for the year. We're getting, as they previously mentioned, we're getting new support for the Aichi Icon and Kai Icon decks. We're getting Akane and Pongo for Aichi Icon, and Flame of Promise Airmo for Kai Icon. There's probably a second card for Kai Icon too. I just imagine it's a case of, well, it's not that iconic of a card compared to the pair of Akane and Pongo, so we're just not going to show it here. Um, yeah. Then we have new triggerers for each of the main 5 nations. I wouldn't be surprised if these are like new ace units. I would appreciate ace units that use a resource that isn't energy. I would really, really like that, honestly. Then we have new dual nation units. So these are very clearly units from the past, right? We have like stuff like or whatever it's called. Is that Crayon Tiger or Binoculars? Binoculars Tiger. We have Binoculars. We have Gwen, Ruin Shade. We have Brutal Jack, Genocide Jack, Curse Lancer, Shiryuki, one of the Arresters, Reguel, Pure Love Succubus, etc., etc., right? Um, But there's been some comments from NAC that say, hey, these are not actually the units. They're like descendants that look identical. But they're not. So they're probably not like encounter locked like the cycle we got in DZBT06. The other thing that's interesting to note is these 5 nation pairs are specifically the 5 nation pairs that we did not get 2 years ago when we got the original cycle of dual nation units. It's Dragon Empire and Keter, Dragon Empire and Brandgate, Dark States Stoicha, Dark States Keter Sanctuary. Wow, we have gotten like 4 cards with that dual nation pairing in the last like 3 months. And Brandgate Stoicha. So it is covering the 5 nation pairs that we did not get last time. I do think still think it's really lame that we're just not letting Lyrical be a part of these dual nation pairings. Maybe one day it'll happen. But yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for these. I like the original batch of dual nation cards a lot. They at the time they opened up a lot of options for deck building in a lot of different decks. And like they were expensive, but like that, like I care about like the deck building options a lot more. So I'm very excited for these. They also showed off the legendary trigger rares for each of for IG, Kai, Chrono, Shin, and Yu Yu. That's going to be in this set as well. Cool chase card. Inazuma 11 stuff in DZBT 15. And of course, as one might expect, we are getting a Ren Icon deck in DZBT 15. I would be very unsurprised to see the other 2 members of Q4 in here as well. That might make things a bit tight because that would require 2 Keter decks because Oracle Think Tank and Shadow Paladin are both Keter Sanctuary, of course. But also they've been doing triple rare upload anyways. They can fit 2 decks if they really want to. And then we got the announcement of the second Buddy Fight collab booster. I don't know why Freedom Duo has this listed as Desire Force. That is, you covered Buddy Fight, man. You know that's not what that's called. It comes out in late July in Japan, and it's called Disaster Force. So being named something like that, I kind of think this will be strictly disaster stuff. So if you want to cover 6 decks, I think like the obvious. So the 4 that will 100%, I am 100% confident will be covered in this set are Roga's Armor Knights deck, Kiri's Asgard deck, the Ragnarok deck specifically, right? Sophia's Stars deck, and Tsuku's Purgatory Knight deck, right? Those not only cover 3 different worlds that were not covered in the first set, but those are also like the most prominent and most popular characters among Disaster. If they want to go a bit farther than that, I think there's a decent shot of Davide and Shido being included. I think Gremlin and Terami are very, very long shots. I don't think those 2 are going to happen, unfortunately. A combination of space and a combination of just like the space in the set and those characters just not being particularly popular. And they're rather bit players within the season 1 plot anyways. Davide and Shido like get a lot of play within season 1, so like it would make sense to include them. They both extend into season 2 as well. Shido continues to show up in later seasons as well. So yeah. Other than that, I think there's like a slight possibility that we get like an Ancient World deck in Dual Seeger or like a Hero World deck in either Cardburn or Captain Answer, but I think it's most likely we just cover the Disaster Force stuff, and then we have like support for the decks from set 1 in there as well. That is what I would personally expect. That is, and it's very unsurprising to me that they're doing it this way because like Tsuku is a cash cow. Tsuku has always been one of Buddy Fight's biggest money makers, so it makes a lot of sense that they would want to split Tsuku's 3 main decks across 3 different Buddy Fight sets. That's a big part of why I expected the second set to largely cover season 1 stuff, like more season 1 stuff, Not only because there was a lot of season 1 stuff that was left uncovered, but also because that gives them the excuse to do Purgatory Knights in a set before they eventually do Star Dragon World in a later set. And like they if they do like a full 100 set, like you basically have no choice what to do Star Dragon World. So it makes sense to hold back and continue doing season 1 stuff, and do Purgatory Knights, right? And that's it for that stream. So let's move on to Thursday stuff. So on Thursday, we'll talk about the festival stuff first. So we got like all the reprints. The basic reprint structure is we got trigger reprints. Pretty sure that's what these are. I'm pretty sure it's just trigger units at the commons. But the reprints are all the tournament pack promos for each nation throughout the year, as to a specific cut-off points. The double rare reprint is the Soul Front, and the triple rare reprint is the Rat, the Jewel Beast, the various Teethfall clones with Maedith and Magnetus for Swordcha and Brandgate, and the discard fodder grade 1s from 2 festivals ago. If you look through these, that's what it is for all of them, right? That's what it is for all of them. Then we have the magazine reprints, as per usual. So we're getting reprints for the Gargrex ride line, plus its support grade 0. The magazine promos of the alternative bosses for each of the Koro decks. The one that matters here a lot is the Rewinder grade 3. That is the game changer for that deck, to my understanding. That is allowed to be a meta contender in Japan. And then these are some additional magazine promos that are also being reprinted, not as Rees, but as just normal rarities. So we have these 3 out of triple rare. This one is double rare. 3 of those 4 we have already gotten in English in DZPT 12. But there is one new here, which is the Marlene promo, which is a pretty big deal. That Marlene promo is a pretty big deal for that deck. And then we have the Aichi Icon cards. So we got Kane and Pongal. So Pongal is very basic grade 1. At the end of the battle where it boosts a unit with an IG icon, you can put into Soul, look top 5 from the top of your deck, and add up to 1 non-Regalis piece grade 3 to your hand, shuffle your deck. This isn't fantastic, to be quite honest with you. This is not great. But this is like, okay, this is like a grade 1 you could call off of your grade 3 Alfred, and then you shove it into Soul, try and get grade 3, right? So that's not the worst thing in the world. It's still not great, though. And then we have Akane, who is a much better card. When it's placed on rear, and you have either an Aichi Icon Vanguard or Houndraiser Vanguard, you can Counterblast 1, search and call up to 1 grade 1 or lower high beast from your deck onto rear guard circle in the same column as this unit, and shuffle your deck. And then once per turn, you return 1 high beast rear guard with Aichi Icon that did not enter this turn to the bottom of your deck. During your turn, your Vanguard gets power plus 5k, and when this is boosted by high beast and you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, during this battle, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So a couple things here. One, the second effect is very interesting in how it actually makes Sparkle a lot better, because now you can call out your Flogos for the early game, and then just loop them back into the deck while giving your Vanguard a power buff. With Akane. That auto effect, that on-place effect, is very, very, very strong. You can use it for strong early game. You can use it to call out Sargon in particular, which is incredibly powerful. That makes an instant. When you're at grade 2 or lower, that's an instant. That's an instant 23 column. And once you're in grade 3 or greater, it becomes a 28 column. Those are pretty good numbers. However, the problem with this is that this costs Counterblast. The deck doesn't have like really readily available counter charge, and you do need a Counterblast available in the early game on your grade 3 turn for the Gordon line, as well as the Counterblast you need for Alfred himself. So on that front, the Counterblast cost is not fantastic. I can very easily see a world where this doesn't make the cut, just because the Counterblast economy is not quite there. But the card is still like very, very good, and if you can find a way to make that Counterblast economy work, then you still end up with a very strong card. And then moving on from that, let's talk about Zerith. Okay, so let's start from the bottom. So, grade 0 is a D starter, yada yada. Grade 1, Zerith is when it rides on top of the grade 0, you Soul Blast once your deck for up to 3 different magic from your deck. Yeah, deck and put them into Order Zone. If you place one or more from hand, you draw a card. So the magics are the same 3 that Barracuda got with different arts. So it's revive a non-sentinel normal unit. Draw 1 the first time you use it, and discard draw 1, discard 1 on all subsequent uses, and plus 5k to one of your units. This has the same issue with the quality of life effect that Barracuda has, where like if you open 2 or more of the orders, you're just gonna be down a card, which really, really sucks. But hey, it is what it is. Grade 2 is when wrote upon by grade 3 with Zerith in its name, search and put up to 1 Grand Magic or Crimson Moon from your deck or face up damage into drop. And if you search your deck, shuffle the deck. If placed from damage zone, put the top card of your deck into your damage zone. And during this turn, you may play 2 orders, but you cannot play orders with the same name during this turn. So like once per game on your grade 3 ride up turn, you get the capacity to play the Crimson Moon and your Grand Magic on the same turn. I think the expectation is okay after that first grade 3 turn, you've ideally burned through like all of your Crimson Moons, so you don't need them anymore. However, this does like instantly reveal like a problem with the deck is that it has a Grand Magic like Barracuda. So you need to run your 3 magics, like 3 or 4 of the Grand Magic, and then like 4 copies of the Crimson Moon, plus your Persona rides, which puts you at like 14 shieldless cards out of your what 30 cards that aren't your triggers and sentinels. So that's not a good place to be starting shield wise. That's really, really bad. Just demands a lot out of you immediately. This Rhyline piece isn't like a true +1 either. There's like, yeah, like it's not great. It's not a great Rhyline piece, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's like nice for consistency. Well, like the Grand Magic will be able to activate from drop, so I guess like yeah, it's effectively a search in that way. So like it works as like a pseudo +1, but like it's not the greatest. Then we have Zerith Fantome. Once per turn, you can counterblast 1 to call a Zerith Fantome token into your center, back row, rear guard. During this turn, it can attack from back row, and it has drive -1. And it can do drive tracks during its battle. So you always have 3 drive tracks via this effect. And then it has a Fantome skill, act, bind all Crimson Moons from your soul or drop. Choose up to the same number of trigger units without overtrigger from your drop, up to the number you bound for this effect. Return them back to deck and shuffle your deck. During this fight. During this fight, you cannot use Phantom skill of this unit, of a unit with the same name as this unit. Again, so it's a one-shot Fantome effect, Fantome skill. Ideally you return 4 Crimson, you bind 4 Crimson Moons, and you get to return 4 triggers to your deck, which is very strong, especially if those can all be heals. If you get to return 4 heals, that's really crazy. It's really, really strong. Um, the Yeah, this is a pretty solid Fantome effect, but the grade 3 isn't doing a whole lot. I think the one thing to really note about this is that unlike Barracrea, this deck just doesn't have a way to cast multiple of the magics. You're only casting the one magic per turn. So it is not able to make use of the magics anywhere near as well as Barracrea is. As for that token, so the token also has a shield value effect where when your other unit is attacked, you can retire it to give it power plus 10k. And there's no reason not to dip into that effect because at the end of your opponent's turn, it's just going to retire itself anyways, and you're going to need to regenerate it. So it generates an extra like free 10k shield, which is pretty nice. That's pretty solid. Um, all right, let's talk about the rest of the pieces. So of course we have the Cycler. It's an Amina. As a deck that kind of needs to hit all 4 Crimson Moons, you will probably want to be running this card because you do need to find your Crimson Moons. Trooper grade 2. All right, let's talk about the Grand Magic. That's important. So Grand Magic, Phantom Grand Magic Lead Radar. You can play this from drop, and you may only play this if you have Zerith Fantome Vanguard. You pay Soul Blast 1. Bind this card during your turn. Your Vanguard gets all of your Fantoma units get power plus 5,000. If there are 3 or more of this in your bind zone, power plus 10k instead. So on the third use, it'll be power plus 10k instead. This is a pretty powerful power spread effect because you're spreading like 30k across your field. However, even with that, even with the plus 10k, the Zerith is not swinging for a whole lot. It's swinging for what, like it's swinging for like 18 or 23. If you give the plus 5k boost from the magic to it, then it can hit. Once you're at 3 of these bounds, you can get it to 28. It's just not good numbers. And that's your 4th attack, right? Those are numbers that are pretty easy for your opponent to like no pass. Yeah, it's just not great. It also has a quality of life effect of it can be bound by other abilities, and if you have a Zerith Vanguard, when you reveal this card by the ability of Crimson Moon's effect, it's treated as a Crimson Moon, so you can get it into your hand, right? Which is okay. That's all right. Now, of course, that means the Fantome race matters a lot, which means we really want our cards to be high quality, because otherwise, the Dark Support cards be high quality, because if they aren't, and we really need to be dipping into generics, that means that we're losing a lot of the value that the deck is supposed to be providing. So we have Fantine here, which is when placed on Vanguard, when placed on rear, sorry, and you have a Zerith Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 look at a number of cards from the top of your deck up to the number of Fantomes, add 1 to hand, choose and put up to 1 Fantome in normal order into the drop, and shuffle the deck. So this deck thins 2, which is really strong. Putting any card from among them into your hand is really, really strong. That is really good stuff. On front or rear, it gets when your Vanguard with your Great to Rear Greater Fantome attacks, and you have a Great to Rear Greater Zerith Vanguard, it gets power plus 5k, so it's going to get power plus 10 overall from both of your Zeriths attacking, which is pretty neat. That's like the baseline of power that we want to be hitting. Then the Tira, which is a double rare grade 2. If you have a grade 3 or greater Zerith Vanguard, and it's placed on, and this unit was placed on rearguard this turn, from drop, it gets power plus 5k. When this unit attacks and you have a Zerith Vanguard, you can Energy Blast 2, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose and discard up to 1 Crimson Moon or Grand Magic, and shuffle your deck. If your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater during this battle, this unit gets power plus 5k. So that's alright. However, this card can only be a plus 10k if it's eating your 1 magic a turn off the revival, which is not great when the deck is already limited to only using 1 magic a turn. Like, if you need to refill your board, that's fine, but if you don't, it's not that appealing, right? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this one, to be honest. Um, then we have grade 1. These are all Fantomes, of course. When it's placed on rear and you have a Zerith Vanguard, look at top 3, discard up to 1, and shuffle the deck. And if you have a Zerith Vanguard, it gets shield plus 5k. So 10k shield is nice, but we have to run so many shield discards anyways. Um, this is the first grade 1 we're seeing, and it's like not particularly good quality. And we kind of need the Fantome grade 1s to be like decent quality, because that's how we get full value out of the order. But this is not all that good. Like it'll be a 13k booster. It does filter, but you can't get that filter off the revive. I don't know. It's all right. Grade 3, that just has the effect of your Fantome token cannot be chosen retired by your opponent's card abilities. Um, and then grade 1, that's just a basic. If you have a grade 3 or greater Zerith Vanguard, it gets power plus 5k, shield plus 5,000. That's a bit better than the usual fare for these, because this will be an 18k booster with the Grand Magic. But like, so like a lot of these cards are cards that would be like solid in like a normal like 5 attack deck context, right? But this is a 4 attack deck where the 4th attack looks very low quality. Um, and in that context, I just don't think these cards are nearly impressive enough. I am not, with the number of shield discards you're forced to run and the rear guard quality we're looking at here, and the Grand Magic like really pressuring you to only not really dip into generics. I don't know. I'm not hugely jazzed about this deck. I don't think it's particularly great. I think Barracuda like is doing very similar things much better. With like less shield discards, is able to dip into more of the magics, so it's more interesting in that way. Is able to like stack up power on a single unit that's going to attack multiple times. 4 drives is just very powerful. I don't know. I just think Barracuda just seems significantly better than this. And I'm not super high on Barracuda anyways. Um, but let's go through the cards of the day. So we have a Rank 8 Grade 1. When it's placed on Guardian Circle and the attacking unit was placed from somewhere other than hand this turn, and you have 2 or more cards in your order zone. Soul Blast 1. During this turn, this unit gets shield plus 10,000. You can't be putting this many restrictions on a shield gain effect and then also costing it. Like, this is not good at all. We have Hexa Orb support. Star Select Sorceress. When this is placed on rare and you have a Vanguard with Sorcerer in its name, you can Energy Blast 3 and draw a card. And then if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets power plus 5k. Pretty alright. Front row. When chosen by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Sorceress Vanguard, you look at the top card of your deck and return it to the top or put it into Soul. And during this turn, this unit gets power plus 5k. Solid enough card. Nothing like earth shattering, but it's like solid enough. Grade 1, little carrot guys in Soicha. When this boosts and you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, you can return a normal order from your drop back to the bottom of your deck, and it gets power plus 5k. So it's like a 13k booster that requires you returning normal orders to the deck. No way, no shot. Then Miracle, we have, oh right, this is FlamG. Yeah, this is FlamG support. Grade 1, double rare. If you have a grade 3 or greater FlamG Vanguard, you counterblast 1, put this into your damage zone, draw 1. During this turn, you will only lose if your damage zone has 7 or more cards, and you get all your units with FlamG get power plus 5,000. At the end of your turn, choose and bind a face-up card with the same name as this card from your damage zone. So this card's interesting. The counterblast cost is a bit weird. So as I recall, the FlamG Grade 0 that you do your second Vanguard attack with, gets power based on the number of cards and damage, both players' damage, I believe. So this does increase the ceiling of that card, which is neat. And it does do a good power spread. The power spread seems quite good. This seems all right. This seems all right. That power spread alone seems like solid enough, because that's like we're looking at fairly significant power spread here, fairly significant pumping of the numbers. See, that's probably like that is probably good enough. Um, it's a bit of a weird card though. And then we have a lyrical grade 1. I believe this one's generic. Yeah. When your Vanguard is attacked and the power of the attacking unit is 33k or more, Energy Blast 3, move this unit to Guardian Circle, and during this battle, this unit gets power plus 10k, shield plus 10k. This one's pretty neat because it's a back row interceptor. The power condition is basically nothing, because like if it's not able to hit you with that much power, you're not really going to have need of a card like this. And basically every swing that matters in the game is going to be hitting those sorts of numbers. So this is a pretty cool one. I do like this card. I do like this card. It kind of needs to fall into a deck that isn't like trying to do the lyrical bounce stuff, but in the right deck, this seems like pretty solid. Yeah, I do like this card. I do like this card. And then we have financial support. It's pretty good financial support. So the grade 2 is a double rare. Gets the following effects if you have a financial Vanguard. When it's placed on rear guard or retired from rear by your Vanguard's ability, you get to counterblast one, draw a card, and then put a card from drop into soul. Pretty nice. When this attacks and you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, it gets power plus 5k. And if it was placed on rear by your Vanguard's ability this turn, it gets another power plus 5k. So it like gives you cards on both place and when you kill it, and is a solid power attacker. The big one to me though is this grade 1. This grade 1 is sick. It's only a rare, but this card's incredible. So when it's retired from rear by the ability of your Financial Vanguard, you Soul Blast one and add to your hand, right? On Guardian Circle, it gets shield plus 5,000 per grade of your Financial Vanguard. So even on your grade 2 turn, defending your grade 2, there's still going to be a 15k shield, and then ups to a 20k shield for the rest of the game once you hit grade 3. That's insane. That's so much shield value, and like you get to put on field as like fodder for your retire effects, and then bounce it back to your hand to use as shield. Like that's so good. That's like really, really solid. This is a really strong card. And then we have a Down Dragon grade 2. When it attacks and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can Energy Blast 3, and your opponent chooses and binds one from their drop. And during this battle, this unit gets power plus 5k. And if a trigger was bound, power plus 10k instead. This is unlikely to be very good. Opponent's choice. We don't have the sort of mass drop zone bind to make this super valuable. It's only getting plus 5k. Like that's not really worth Energy Blast 3, right? But that's it. That financial support is really, really cool. Next week we have this is it's Barracria, Nanaclear, and Kyrie support. And then we have a new Fantome deck in Lyrical. We have what's his name? Impaldio. We have Impaldio in Lyrical. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And this will be Hunter Surge signing off.